Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Yours truly, the Mortal Soul. I'm here again with one more video. If you read the title, it's what it truly means to know thyself. Before we get into it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with when I drop a new video. Also, hit a like on this video just to help the algorithm. And make sure you leave a comment below so we could have some dialogue, okay? First goal is to hit us 100 subscribers, alright? So make sure you subscribe. Alright, so let's get into this. Know thyself. What does that mean? Alright, I like to use analogies and I like to reference like pop culture stuff as well. We're going to use the Matrix as an example. I always like using the Matrix. So, know thyself. So, if you've ever seen the Matrix and you remember when Neo was after Neo took the red pill and he was speaking with Morpheus and he started to see his reality crumble around him. Morpheus said to him, "Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you could not wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?" And that directly relates to the world that we're living in now. Okay, so most people, if you ask them who they are, they're going to tell you what they did in school. They're going to tell you their career. They're going to tell you what sports they played. They're gonna a lot of times people define themselves by everything outside of themselves. All right, knowing yourself is to realize that, okay, you're really playing a character, so all the things that you've done, it defines you to a certain extent, but who are you really? Who's that person that when somebody passes away, people are always saying, okay, they're up in heaven looking down on me. So if you think about it, right, if their physical body is buried somewhere or cremated, who could be up there looking down on you? All right, so knowing thyself is to know that you are the spirit. You're infinite. Hence the name hence my name, the immortal soul. It's just literally what it is. When I pass on in the physical, I know that it's just a transformation on a higher plane. That's not the end of my story. It's just the end of my story here. So that's what it truly means to know thyself. It's just to overstand that, you are the spirit, having the human experience. And this is knowing thyself. When I reflect upon like the spiritual journey, I've heard about like reincarnation before, like I spiritually awoke, and I've heard about us being spiritual beings, but it wasn't until I came to that realization on my own that I realized that that's when everything hits you, and especially for people out there that have had like a OBE, out of body experience, it firsthand. The same thing with dreaming. You just got to think about all these things. And speaking about like dreaming, right? When you have a dream, you're in the dream and you're still able to see in the dream. You're operating as if like it's reality. You got to ask yourself, like, how, if you're laying in bed, your eyes closed, how are you able to see in the dream? How are you able to move around? How can the dream be so real, when you wake up? Sometimes a lot of people wake up out of a dream startled, or their heart is racing because it was so real to them, And this goes back to even in the Matrix. Morpheus said it as well, like, what is real? How do you define real? But overall, when you hear the term knowing thyself, is just identifying yourself as a spirit first, to observe the consciousness, observing everything that's going on, so that's what it truly means to know yourself. So a lot of people, as I said, you don't want to get a lot of the suffering that people that people endure down here is just simply because they're looking outside. Somebody told them who to be. You have to redefine who you are, and in terms of like the spiritual awakening, that's why it's so hard for a lot of people, because it's how do you, like, once you come to this point where you realize and you know who you are, you no longer identify with the labels and such. It's that's why it's so hard to unlearn all the things that you've learned so far, you know. But as I said, it always comes back to you, you know, inward. You want to look inward for the answer. Nobody could tell you who you are. Even though I'm here and I'm explaining it to you, if you haven't gotten to that point or that realization, it's just some people are gonna watch this and they think I'm speaking nonsense, you know. But as I said, when you see know thyself, it's just recognizing that you are the spirit. You know, you are the spirit. You are the the deity or the energy that's gonna continue. You know, when you're physical, this vehicle, your body is a vehicle. You know, there's this song by Damian Marley where it says like the body is just a vehicle transporting the soul. He's not the first one to say that, but exactly that's exactly how it is. You know, so that's it. I wanted to come here and make this video just to let y'all know when you see the term know thyself, and also a lot of times when you see people, I do it as well, when you see people just put the eye is just saying that that's your true eye. You know, like you only have like one eye, you know, in a spiritual sense. I mean, in the physical sense, you have your two eyes, and they call it the third eye. But that eye that I'm speaking about is just that eye that you could see in a dream, or you could see when you're having like an astral experience. You know, so knowing thyself is to know that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. You know, so just drop all the labels, all of that. Forget about the cars, forget about the houses. That's just things you've attained in the physical sense. But who you are, like, definite, is the spirit, you know, the soul, the consciousness, the observer, you know. So that's it. All right, before I get out of here, just make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit a like on this video, leave some comments below. As I said, the first goal is to get to 100 subscribers. And I want to take the time out to shout out to all all the people that's watching and subscribing to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Like I said, I'm just here to spread the word. You know, I'm just here to help other people on the awakening journey. Just to let them know that, you know, you're not alone. You know, and we're all teachers, we're all students as well. You know, so that's it. Immortal Soul, I'm here. I'm gonna sign out. So see y'all on the next video, right? Know thyself. Know thyself.